Imagine you're a young girl in ancient Rome, no older than 10, playing carefree in the sunlit courtyard of your family's home. The year is 57 BCE. Your dolls are your world, your mother's gentle humming as she weaves fills the air, and your father's voice carries from the atrium as he negotiates with clients. It's an ordinary day, until the chilling blast of ceremonial horns pierces the morning calm. The Pontifex Maximus, Rome's highest priest, has arrived. His presence is a storm cloud over the neighborhood. You peek from behind your mother's robes as he inspects the children gathered before him, his eyes cold and calculating, like a merchant appraising livestock. Then his gaze locks onto you. The world slows. He raises his staff and declares, "This one serves Vesta." Your mother collapses, sobbing. Your father stands paralyzed, knowing resistance means death for your entire family. You're too young to understand the tears, too innocent to grasp the weight of those words. You've just been chosen for what Rome calls the highest honor a girl can receive. But what you don't know, what no one dares tell you, is that you've been sentenced to 30 years of sacred terror, followed by punishments so horrific that death would feel like mercy. If you're captivated by the hidden truths of history, stories that peel back the polished veneer of the past to reveal its raw, unsettling core, then this journey is for you. Before we dive into the chilling realities of the Vestal Virgins, I invite you to hit that like button, share this story with others, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest corners. Your support keeps these forgotten stories alive, connecting us across time to honor the human experiences history tried to erase. Comment below and let me know where you're joining me from. I'm amazed every day by how our shared curiosity brings us together from every corner of the globe. Let's uncover the 3 most horrific punishments inflicted on Rome's Vestal Virgins. Punishments so brutal they were scrubbed from sanitized history books, leaving only whispers of the truth. The selection of a Vestal Virgin wasn't an honor. It was a state-sanctioned kidnapping, cloaked in religious reverence and divine justification. In ancient Rome, the Vestal Virgins were the guardians of the sacred flame of Vesta, goddess of the hearth, whose eternal fire symbolized Rome's divine protection and continuity. To be chosen was to be torn from your family, stripped of your identity, and bound to a life of servitude that demanded perfection under threat of unimaginable punishment. The requirements were precise. A girl aged 6 to 10, born to living Roman citizen parents, physically flawless, and from a legally valid marriage. She had to be a symbol of purity, a blank slate for Rome to mold into a sacred vessel. But behind the pomp and ceremony, families dreaded the Pontifex Maximus's visits. They hid their daughters, sent them to distant relatives, or even marred their faces with cosmetics to make them unsuitable. Why? Because the life of a Vestal was no privilege. It was a gilded cage, a 30-year sentence in the house of the Vestals, a luxurious prison in the Roman Forum where every move was watched, every mistake catastrophic. The Vestals lived under 3 sacred laws: perpetual virginity, absolute obedience to religious authorities, and unwavering guardianship of the sacred flame. These weren't mere guidelines. They were chains, enforced by punishments that made Rome's public executions seem merciful. The Vestals were told they were sacred, chosen by the gods, elevated above all women. But this sanctity was a double-edged sword. Because they were holy, their punishments couldn't be ordinary. Rome devised specialized tortures that preserved their divine status while shattering their humanity. What you're about to hear isn't taught in classrooms. It's too disturbing, too raw. These were not isolated acts of cruelty, but a system of control, designed to dominate women through fear and disguised as divine will. The sacred flame of Vesta was Rome's heartbeat, a fire that could never be allowed to die. Its extinction wasn't just a religious failure, it was treason, a betrayal of the state itself. When the flame went out, the Pontifex Maximus launched an immediate investigation. Each Vestal was interrogated in isolation, confined to a windowless chamber beneath the temple, deprived of food and sleep until a confession was extracted. The punishment that followed was called verberatio, a ritualized beating conducted in utter darkness, deep within the temple complex. The condemned Vestal was stripped naked and bound to a wooden frame crafted for this purpose. The Pontifex Maximus himself wielded consecrated rods, blessed in Vesta's name, designed to inflict maximum pain without breaking the skin. Because a Vestal's blood was sacred, and could not be spilled visibly. The verberatio was no random act of violence. It was a meticulously choreographed ritual. A leather gag silenced her screams, preserving the sanctity of her voice. The rods caused internal bruising and organ damage, leaving no external marks but ensuring agony that could linger for days. Ancient medical texts describe Vestals who died from internal injuries, their deaths recorded as sudden illness or divine displeasure to conceal the truth. The secrecy was absolute. Most Romans never knew these beatings occurred. The psychological toll was as brutal as the physical. Vestals lived in constant dread of the next inspection, knowing a gust of wind or a moment's distraction could doom them. Some accounts suggest the flame was deliberately extinguished by authorities to target specific Vestals for political or personal reasons, the religious pretext masking state-sanctioned torture. The recovery process was designed to prolong suffering. Temple physicians provided minimal care, ensuring slow, painful healing. The Vestal was reminded daily that her pain was deserved, her failure a betrayal of Vesta. This cycle of trauma and compliance turned vibrant young women into obedient shells, their spirits broken by fear. Historical records note Vestals who developed tremors, lost their hair from stress, or aged decades in months after their first verberatio. The randomness of the punishment was its most insidious feature. A natural draft, a temple flaw, or sabotage could extinguish the flame, yet the Vestals bore the blame. The trauma wasn't just physical, it was a systematic dismantling of their sense of safety and self-worth, ensuring decades of compliance. But if you think verberatio was the pinnacle of Rome's cruelty, the punishment for incestum, the charge of breaking a Vestal's vow of chastity, was far worse. The case of Opimia and Floronia in 216 BCE provides a chilling example. Accused on flimsy gossip and political motives, they faced a secret trial by the College of Pontiffs, with no defense or evidence required. The verdict, a return to the earth from which all life springs. This poetic phrase hit a horror beyond comprehension. At dawn, the condemned Vestal was dressed as a bride, her hair adorned with flowers, her mouth sealed with wax to silence her. The procession through the Roman Forum mimicked a wedding, but it led to the campus Celeratus, the field of the wicked. There, a chamber awaited, carved into the earth, accessible only by a narrow staircase that would be sealed forever. Inside, Rome's twisted mercy was on display. A bed, a lamp with 6 hours of oil, a loaf of bread, a jug of water, and a cup of milk. The official claim was that Rome wasn't killing her, the gods would decide her fate. But the provisions were calculated to prolong her suffering. The air would run out before the food, ensuring a slow, suffocating death. The Vestal had to descend the stairs herself, participating in her own burial. Once inside, the staircase was dismantled, the chamber sealed with earth and stones, leaving no trace. Ancient sources describe scratching sounds from the ground in the days that followed, fingernails clawing at stone, desperate attempts to escape. The victim's name was erased from records, her family forbidden to mourn or speak of her. She didn't just die, she was erased from existence. The psychological devastation was total. The Vestal had hours to contemplate her fate, watching the lamp flicker out, feeling the air grow thin. Her isolation was absolute, her suffering invisible. This wasn't execution, it was divine judgment, a legal fiction that allowed Rome to torture its sacred servants without guilt. The practice persisted for centuries, its victims reduced to nameless shadows in history, their stories buried with them. After 30 years, surviving Vestals were promised freedom, financial rewards, and the right to marry. But this was a cruel lie. A Vestal selected at 8 would be 38 upon release, past Rome's prime marriageable age. Society viewed them as tainted by their divine service, untouchable by men who feared divine retribution. Claudia Quinta, released in 43 CE, faced this reality. Despite a dowry and suitors, her engagements collapsed under religious objections. She died alone, unmourned in an unmarked grave. Financial rewards often vanished through bureaucratic tricks, leaving former Vestals destitute. Decades of trauma left them with severe PTSD, nightmares of the flame, compulsive behaviors, and an inability to connect with others. Some descended into sacred madness, wandering Rome with visions of Vesta. Others became complicit, training new Vestals and perpetuating the cycle of abuse. The Vestal system was a centuries-long experiment in trauma-based control. By isolating young girls, subjecting them to unpredictable punishments, and dangling a false promise of freedom, Rome created obedient symbols of purity at the cost of their humanity. The verberatio shattered their bodies, living burial crushed their hope, and the illusion of liberation destroyed their spirits. This cruelty was normalized, accepted as necessary for Rome's divine favor. The legacy of the Vestals echoes in history's use of purity and religion to control women, a pattern that persists in subtler forms today. These women weren't just victims, they were human beings whose courage and suffering deserve remembrance. Their stories challenge us to confront the tyrannies that hide behind sacred justifications. If this journey into Rome's dark heart moved you, like, share, and subscribe to keep these stories alive. Comment below with your thoughts or other historical mysteries you'd like explored. Together, we honor the forgotten, ensuring their voices echo across time. Let's keep uncovering the truths history tried to bury, because remembering their pain is how we resist cruelty today.